Hi, welcome to Rocket Realty Radio Show. My name is Poogle. I'm a professional and an experienced real estate agent in Dallas-Fort Worth area. In today's show, number 16, I'm going to talk about property inspections. So let's get started. Property inspection is a very important process in any real estate transaction. What it is when a buyer and a seller is engaged in a real estate transaction, it ensures the property being purchased by the buyer is it in a good shape. Okay, that is what property inspection is all about. Now, when you look at property inspection, it falls into two categories. It could be for residential properties and number two for commercial. In today's show, I'm going to focus purely on residential. At some point in the future, I will talk more about commercial property inspection. Now, why is commercial a little bit different? The reason commercial is different is because commercial has different categories or different types of properties. For example, when it is an apartment complex that one is buying, the inspection is different. If you're buying a gas station, the inspection process is quite different. If you're buying a strip mall, then it is very different. If you're buying a dentist office or a medical office, it's quite different. Therefore, my focus today is going to be more on residential, and at some point in later, we'll talk about commercial. Now, who does the inspection? Okay, in most states, the inspection is done by a generalist. Okay, so every state has a licensing board, and the licensing board issues a license for a general inspector to perform inspection on a property. In Texas, it is controlled by Texas Real Estate Commission, and they are all licensed. These general inspectors are licensed. I use the word generalist because it's just like a general physician, right? When you go for an annual physical checkup, the general physician checks everything out. And then if there is, for example, an irregular heartbeat, he's going to recommend to a cardiologist. The general inspectionist is also very similar. They're going to inspect everything top to bottom. And if there is some issue, for example, HVAC, then they're going to recommend that we reach out to a specialist, right? So what does a generalist do? Most of the general inspection is visual in nature. So they inspect everything from roof to foundation and everything in between. Some of the general inspectors, they climb the roof. Some of them use drone technology. Some of them use cameras, and they inspect the roof and they note down any faults or defects in the roof. Then they walk around the property on the exterior, look at the windows, look at the bricks, look at the foundation, looking at the drainage of the area, and they are going to make visual notes. They're going to make a note of it. If they see cracks along the window or cracks along the brick, they're going to note it in their report. Now, once they complete the outside, they go inside of the property, and in the inside of the property, they're going to look at the walls, they're going to look at the ceiling, they're going to look at the electricals, each of the plugs. They're going to see if the lights are turning on and off. They're going to raise the window up and down. Is it opening? They're also going to check on the plumbing system. They're going to check on the appliances. They're going to check on the irrigation. So the list goes on. So wherever they can visually check, they're going to check. If there is a piece of furniture and there is a outlet right behind the furniture, they are not going to move the furniture to do that. Most of these inspections done by the generalist are qualitative in nature. That means they are not testing. They are not doing what is called a destructive testing to make sure it is working or not. For example, if it is in a summer season, they're going to run an HVAC system and see if it is cooling properly. The guidelines provided in the state of Texas is the return and the supply air. The difference should be between 15 to 20 degree Fahrenheit. Okay. So as long as it is within that time temperature difference, then they are going to say that the equipment is performing normally. Okay, they use a laser beam to record these temperature, and then they will calculate the difference. So this is one of the areas where they will do a quantitative readings. They also do water pressure readings to see if the pressure of the water coming to the property from the city is at it is certain psi. So these are quantitative, but most of it is going to be visual. Let's say they see a crack on the ceiling, they're going to say, hey, crack noticed, right? That is what they are going to state on the inspection report. Now, how long does this inspection last? Based on my experience, if you have a property that is 1,000 square feet, this inspection can take anywhere from 1.5 to 2 hours. A general rule of thumb, right? That is how long it will take for an inspector to inspect the property. Now, there are other situations where you need to bring what I call specialists. Okay. Now, the generalist is going to do the general inspection, and based on the property condition, the age of the property, right, and various other factors, you may want to bring different specialists. For example, if the property is year built is before 1978, lead-based paint was very common during those times. So it was banned in 1978 in the paint. Therefore, if you're buying a property that was built before 1978, then you want to bring a specialist who is certified to do lead-based paint inspection. So they take and they send it to the lab and then see if it is acceptable level of tolerance. So you have to bring in specialist in that case. Say the property is having heavily wooded area, there is a lot of leaves and foliage, then you might want to bring a termite inspector to make sure there are no termites in the property, right? If the HVAC system has not been changed in the last 10 or 15 years, or maybe it is not cooling properly, and you might want to bring an HVAC technician in order to ensure that the system is functioning properly. Now, during the general inspection, if you suspect there is mold in the property, then you need to bring a mold inspector. So the list goes on based on the condition, based on the age, and what the output of the general inspection report is, right? And each of the dollars spent, is important because you're buying a very expensive property and you want to make sure that it is a good property, right? And you don't need all these inspections simultaneously. Okay, what I recommend is a general inspection to begin with, and based on the age of the property, maybe lead-based inspection, and then based on the output of the general inspection, you may want to bring additional inspection. One other inspection that I recommend is called SWT, sewer and water test. That is, if you suspect the water pressure is not holding up in the property, right? It could be a leak, and the leak could be either in the freshwater line coming into the property, there could be some breakage, or it could be a sewage lake or the dirty water that goes out. And either one of those can cause major issues, and you wanted to do that test only if you suspect that there is a reason to invest that kind of money. Okay. So what is the output of these inspection process? The output of this inspection process is typically these inspectors will provide a report. This report is delivered typically within a day's time. Maybe it takes 1 or 2 days. And what you should do if you are a buyer of a property is that you need to sit with your agent. And this is where the knowledge and the experience of the agent is important. A professional, experienced agent will do 5-10 transactions in a month. As a buyer, you probably will do 3 or 4 transactions in your lifetime buying a home, right? So you sit with your agent and go through the report and ask his or her recommendation what is considered a minor and what is considered a major, right? Now, if there is a major issue in the property, then you got to decide what are you going to do with the transaction. Based on how the contract is structured, maybe you can exit or terminate the contract, or you may have to negotiate with the seller and see what repairs the seller will be able to do so that you can move forward with the transaction. All right. So the role of an agent plays a very, very critical role. So that's when you make a decision, right? What do you want it to do? Hey, are we going to move or buy the property? Are we going to terminate the contract? Or are we going to negotiate so that you can move forward with that transaction? Folks, just to summarize, property inspection specifically in residential is very critical. You start with a generalist, and it typically happens during what is called a due diligence period or an option period. If the general inspection result requires some specialist, then you bring the required specialist to the inspection to inspect the property for additional special needs. And based on the report, you decide what you want to do with the property. Are you going to move forward with the property, or are you going to negotiate? Or if the repairs are too big or the seller doesn't agree to fix it, you're going to cancel the contract. In that case, you need to talk with the real estate agent and see how the contract is structured. If you like this video, folks, please like me on Facebook. My Facebook page is facebook.com/RocketRealtyTX. If you're watching this video on YouTube, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/C/RocketRealtyTX. I conduct this show live every week on Friday at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. If you want to join me, that would be fantastic. Thanks for listening.